Welcome back to another episode of the 10-minute round. This is a big one. There's a lot to talk about. I don't know how long this is gonna take, honestly. It might take really long. We had the card this past weekend. We have UFC 311 coming up this week here in LA. I might be there in person as long as Los Angeles doesn't burn down. And then Bellator died. There's news that Bellator died. A lot has been happening. It's been a busy week. So maybe I'll get to everything. Maybe I won't. I mean, I brought some refreshments. I'm just going to, keep it nice and loose today. I don't know how long this is going to take. I'm probably going to need some refills. So let's start real quick. I'm going to recap the card that happened this past weekend, the fight night, the first fight card of the new year. Big Mackenzie Dern, Big Mac Dern. She gets a win over Amanda Ribas. It's a rematch. I covered this. I kind of previewed this. I was kind of surprised that Amanda was so willing, in that second and third round to kind of engage with Mackenzie Dern on the ground. Obviously, everybody knows what Mackenzie Dern is good at. And maybe the approach was like to not be so fearful of Mackenzie Dern's ground game in this one. But when she hit that omoplata in the second round to reverse positions, you don't see that as often anymore in MMA, in high-level MMA, but she hit it and the way that she grabbed the leg to keep her from rolling over. It was brilliant. It was it's a testament to how good Mackenzie is at jiu-jitsu, how many reps she has in this. So, it was a big win for her. It was a nice finish. I don't know what her plan is over the next month, but you got the title fight in a month, maybe a little less than a month. It's going down in Australia. I don't know if she's down for a flight to Australia, but Tatiana Suarez is fighting for the belt, and Tatiana Suarez is a gal who doesn't often make it to the fight, so she might want to put herself in a position there to be the backup fighter. Who knows? It's a gamble. It might not happen, but I don't know. I did say that this card was going to be mid. It was mid as far as name value, but I did say that these cards lend themselves to the opportunity for some big highlights, and this card had a lot of finishes. The co-main event, Santiago Ponzinibbio, I didn't really see this one being the co-main event, to be honest with you. I get why they did it. Santiago Ponzinibbio does look like he's getting up there. I did say he was 39 years old, so he looked like a 39-year-old guy fighting. He almost got stopped, but he came around and he finished Carlston Harris. It was a good finish. Good on him. I don't know what his plan is moving forward. It's his best days are behind him. So I don't know what he wants out of the rest of his career, how many more fights he's looking forward to. I don't know if he said it in any post-fight interviews, because it's kind of fast forwarding through a lot of the fluff of this card. Like I said, Cesar Almeida was getting set up for just a highlight knockout against Abdul Razak Al Hassan. To his credit, Abdul Razak almost finished Cesar Almeida. He had him hurt, but he got a little overzealous trying to find the finish. He was really looking for it. Even when Cesar Almeida got back to his feet, he was kind of still recklessly, going in and throwing shots. And that's when Cesar Almeida, seasoned kickboxer Cesar Almeida, he caught him with that beautiful counter and just already in the running for knockout of the year. He dropped him he was like a lumberjack cutting down a tree. What a knockout. It was brutal. Good for Cesar Almeida. I think they purposely kind of set him up for this opportunity, and he capitalized on it. So good on him. We'll see what's next for him. The Roman Kopylov and Chris Curtis, it was an exciting fight. I was looking forward to it. Chris Curtis really did a good job in the second round, kind of coming back, and he was really putting it on Roman Kopylov. It looked like Roman Kopylov was getting a little tired. They were fighting at a good pace, and but Roman kind of came back in that third round. And look, about the stoppage, it happened with 1 second left. People are kind of going back and forth as to whether the ref should have stopped the fight. Should he have not stopped the fight? It's hard for me to say because Chris Curtis got wobbled quite a few times in that round. He took some big shots. he was on shaky legs many times. I get the idea of like Roman Kopylov was nowhere near him when the stoppage happened. And the idea that there's 1 second left, but at the same time, it's like the ref isn't looking at the clock so intimately that he knows that there's 1 second left. He also wasn't looking at Roman Kopylov to see that Roman Kopylov, walked off. He didn't know if he was going to come in from behind and add some more shots to there. Either way, had the fight gone to decision, I think Kopylov would have gotten a decision anyway. But you kind of feel for Chris Curtis a little bit because he does have a lot of bad luck in the cage, and he'll let you hear it. But it is what it is, man. Them's the breaks, Lastly, on this card, I'll talk about the Austin Bashi Christian Rodriguez fight. What did I say? I said C-Rod is a tough test for these young guys. And you put Austin Bashi in there, who, to his credit, he looks good. The stand-up needs a little more polishing for sure, but the grappling is there, and he's a strong kid. But, like, the defensive grappling of C-Rod, like, the things that he was doing, the scrambles, his ability to scramble, it's brilliant, man. Like, he's good at it. And he's fighting, he's fighting up at 145 now. He looked comfortable at that weight. I don't know how he's going to do against, like, the more elite of the division, but they keep putting him up against these up-and-comers, and he keeps, winning. So we'll see what they give him next. I feel like he's earned a step up in competition, or at least, more of a veteran in the UFC. So hopefully he gets that, man. I'd be really happy for him. He's coming out of Duke Rufus's gym. So it'd be cool to see him fight somebody who isn't like on their first or second fight in the UFC. So let's move on to UFC 311. We got a big card ahead of us at the Intuit Dome in Los Angeles. There was talk about maybe moving it to Vegas because of the fires. I hope not, because I would like to be there in person for this one. I've never been to the Intuit Dome. Why would I? The Clippers play there. But I'm pretty excited for this card. I feel like this card is really showcasing like this Eastern European MMA movement. These guys coming out of that region that are just so good. Like, they're so good. And, in the main event, we have Islam Makhachev fighting Arman Tsarukyan. In the co-main event, we got Merab Dvalishvili fighting Umar Nurmagomedov. This card is going to put my tongue through a workout. It hasn't worked this hard since I went to your mom's house. Jiri Prohashka. We got some names on this one. Bogdan Guskov. We got some names. It's going to be tough, but I'm going to talk about it. We're going to get into it. We'll start with the main event. Islam Makhachev is defending his title against Arman Tsarukyan. This is a rematch. They fought once before. I believe Arman Tsarukyan, it was his first fight in the UFC. He took it on short notice, and even though he lost, everybody was impressed that he gave Islam like a good fight. Like, he gave Islam like a tough fight. And we're going to see, both of these guys. It's been years since that fight. Both men have evolved. Their skill sets have evolved. We're going to see who's evolved further. As far as Arman is concerned, he's a talented kid. He's good pretty much everywhere. He's got some power in the hands. He's got fantastic wrestling. He's in shape. I don't know if you've seen a picture of this kid lately, but he's absolutely yoked. He is in shape for this one. So hopefully he's not overtraining, but he looks just, my God. When I was making the thumbnail for this one, I needed to take a moment, I started feeling feelings, like weird feelings inside, deep inside. But anyway, regardless, so what Arman kind of brings to the table is he's just, besides his skill set, hold on, I need a drink of my beer because I can't talk anymore. Besides his skill set, it's like he has heart. Like, he refuses to give up in fights. He refuses to like stop trying to get the win, He's gritty, he's tough, he's a fucking dog. and he brings the fight to people. And in this fight, like, this is his title opportunity. This is his opportunity to show people that with a full training camp, he could potentially beat Islam Makhachev, a guy who a lot of people think is the pound for pound guy. So I do think that Arman is the type of dude that he is going to be as prepared as possible for this fight. Can he beat Islam? I don't know, man. That's a tall order. Islam Makhachev is a tall order for anybody. The fact that he has been so successful in one of the most difficult, like, weight classes in all of MMA. You know, it's not like he's put on this run, you know, in a more shallow division. This is not light heavyweight. Like, this is 155. One of the most stacked weight classes in all of MMA, and he's not only out there winning, but he's finishing guys. Like, Islam has a pretty impressive finishing rate in high level MMA. Like, he's putting guys away that are the best of the division, the top 5 of the division. So Arman has this is not going to be easy. Like, where I can see maybe Arman winning. So in the first fight, he gassed, right? He took it on short notice. He kind of gassed out by the 3rd round. Islam won. I'll edit that burp out. So in the first fight, Arman Tsarukyan gassed out. He took it on short notice. You know, he ran out of steam. Where I think he could potentially win this fight, outside of like him catching Islam and maybe knocking him out, like hurting him on the feet, hurting him on the ground, something like that, because he does have some decent power. He's just so determined that if he can fight at a high pace and make this just a high-paced fight. We've seen Islam kind of fade before. He was fading a little bit in the Dustin Poirier fight, and then he caught the Darce choke. You know, we saw him kind of fade in the 5th round against Alexander Volkanovski. Like, maybe there's a chance that if this fight is just like a knockdown, drag-out fight, that Arman can kind of take over late. Because even though Arman will also probably be tired, like, he's just mentally, the kid is like, he's just so gritty. Like, he could, I don't know. He's so determined, you know, he's so motivated, and I'm sure he's going to be very motivated to win this fight. The problem lies in the fact that Islam is just so skilled. He has been fighting the best guys in the division for years now, and not only winning, but he's been finishing them all. You know, he had that fight that went to decision against Volkanovski, yeah, you know. But other than that, look at the guys he's finished. He's finished Charles Oliveira. He finished Dustin Poirier. He finished Volkanovski the second fight. You know, he's been putting people away. And even though I think Arman is a tough dude, I don't know if Islam can put him away. I would maybe see Islam catching like a submission or something in some of the grappling exchanges rather than not like straight out knocking Arman out. But I feel like because of the success of the gym that, you know, Islam comes from, like, look at those guys. Like, look, their records are insane. They all fight in really tough divisions, and they all win. They don't, you know, Islam has one loss years ago where he got knocked out. But other than that, he's been tearing everybody up. You know, his teammates tear everybody up. Their record is just crazy. They're going to be prepared for this fight. And so I have a hard time betting against Islam Makhachev. Like, I just, even though I think this is probably going to be his toughest fight, because he's not fighting like the old guard anymore. He's fighting a young up-and-comer who's hungry. This guy, Arman, wants to be champion. This is his first title fight in the UFC. Not like other guys that he's fought that, you know, had multiple title fights. Like, this is Arman's first. He's going to be as motivated as it gets. This might be an absolute war of a fight. I just have a hard time believing that Islam is going to lose right now. So anything is possible. Who knows? I'm excited to see it. I really, really think that this is going, it might not be like a slugfest per se. It's probably a lot of grappling, a lot of scrambles, but I'm excited to see how this plays out. Besides that, we got the co-main event. We got Merab Dvalishvili against Umar Nurmagomedov, a teammate of Islam Makhachev, cousin to Khabib. I get kicked off of flights, Nurmagomedov. This fight in itself, even though maybe Umar doesn't have as much popularity, he is still bringing that skill set, that Dagestani skill set that we've seen just be so dominant in the MMA, where their grappling is on point, and a lot of these guys, their striking is on point. And for Merab, I think even though Umar has not consistently fought the same level of competition as Merab or as a lot of other guys in the bantamweight division, Umar just brings that skill set, and he has the luxury of the experience of guys like Khabib, of guys like Islam being on his team. So Umar is going to be an incredible test for Merab. I think of all the guys that Merab has fought, he has the best skill set to deal with what Merab does, what Merab is good at. I thought that when Merab fought Henry Cejudo, because he was a gold medal wrestler and all that he would have a skill set that could deal with Merab. And Merab kind of had his way with him, This is what Merab does. I still think Merab is a guy who wins rounds. He may not put you away, but the fact that he fights at a pace, like his weapon is the pace that he fights at, and he's so busy in there that it is hard to win rounds from him. Just because he is just going to do more. And as he's doing more, it's like this avalanche of offense that if you let him get off, as your gas tank starts to fade, his is not. His gas tank is not going to fade as much as yours, so he's going to be upping the pace, upping the intensity level. He's not a guy, he doesn't have knockout power per se, he's not out there submitting people, but he's just going to drag you somewhere that he is comfortable fighting, and maybe you are not as comfortable fighting. So essentially what Umar has to do is Umar has to kind of bring this skill set that is so above what Merab can do, that he can neutralize the grappling of Merab, that he can neutralize the striking of Merab. And, I think it would be good on Umar if he could actually hurt Merab early. We've seen Merab get hurt. We've seen, I think Umar's best chance would be to just straight up finish Merab, because it's hard to win rounds against a guy that is busy as Merab Dvalishvili. Like, he's just throwing so much offense that it's hard for the judges to look at it like he's not winning. One thing that I can see happening in this fight kind of brings me back to when Aljamain Sterling fought Movsar Evloev. Evloev was competent enough in the grappling where Aljamain usually dominates people in grappling exchanges. Like, once the fight gets there, it's all Aljamain's world. But, Evloev was good enough to not just fight out of bad positions, but to get into good positions of his own on Aljamain. And I think that Umar's skill level will put him in a place where maybe he can get the grappling advantage on Merab. He can kind of put Merab on the back foot, because he's going to need to, man. Merab is a fucking freight train. I'm very curious about this fight, because Merab is just like this puzzle. He's this puzzle. It's like, how do you beat this guy? He really is. Like, people have heard him, and that's as close as we've seen people winning against him lately. He did have that fight where, they thought he was choked out by Ricky Simone, and which he complained about, which he wasn't really finished or whatever. But other than that, like, we don't really see Merab on the losing end of fights. We don't see him on the losing end of rounds. And so I'm curious to see if a guy like Umar, who comes from his gym, from his region, if he has the skill set to deal with Merab, because we've seen Merab just beat all these high-level guys and just have his way with every single one of them. Like, it's he's a fucking animal. He's an animal. Even if you're a fan, he's probably going to try to fight you too, you know? He's unstoppable. So I'm excited about the main. I'm excited about the co-main. I think, though, that I kind of have to cover some other fights on this card because it's a big card, you know? We have Jiri Prochazka versus Jamal Hill. It's, I think, Jamal Hill's first fight since he lost to Alex Pereira, which he blames the referee for, but, you know, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm actually, honestly, I'm curious to see how this one goes because, you know, Jiri, his fighting style, his, you know, the fact that he draws his samurai energy from his ponytail or whatever it is, and he sits in dark rooms and, I don't know, meditates in forests and shit like that. Like, Jiri brings this style that's just so reckless, and it kind of shouldn't work in high level MMA, and I don't think it's a good way to, like, you can't base a career on durability. But for the most part, you know, for everyone except for Alex Pereira lately, like, it's worked out for Jiri. And I'm curious to see if it works out against Jamal Hill, because Jamal Hill does have power. Jamal Hill, you know, has pretty fast hands. I don't know if Jiri is going to be able to withstand the damage that Jamal Hill can potentially put on him, but he's withstood damage against a lot of other guys and then put them out, you know? I think it would benefit Jamal Hill to try to keep this fight as technical as possible, but Jiri just has that thing where he draws people into brawls, he draws people into wars, and he comes out on top. He, like, outwills people. So, you know, I don't know who I'm leaning towards here, because I feel like in every fight that Jiri is in, just because of his style, like, I always, like, lean for the other guy. I lean towards Alexander Rakic, and Alexander Rakic did well in, like, the first round against Jiri. It looked like, you know, he was going to win, and then Jiri just took over late. So I don't know how I don't know who is going to take this one. I really don't, but it's such a fucking coin flip anytime that Jiri fights. So we'll see how it goes, but another good fight on the card. You know, I guess a big deal to see who's going to fight the winner of potentially Alex Pereira and Ankalaev, if that actually is the fight that gets made. So who knows? We got Renato Moicano, Money Moicano, fighting Beneil Dariush. I think this is it for Beneil here. You know, he's had a bit of a bad run the past two fights. He got finished against Charles Oliveira, and then he got finished even faster by Arman Tsarukyan, both obviously guys that are at the top of the division, but Beneil is also a guy that he's getting up there in age. He needs to kind of, if he's going to make another run at the title, which is what he wants to be a champion. You know, it's now or never at this point. And Renato Moicano has been on just such a run, and he's been, you know, just winning every fight that he's been in lately, and he's been doing it in a pretty exciting fashion. So for Renato, it's also a big deal for him that if he can, there was a point where Beneil Dariush was like the dark horse in the division, and he was working his way up to a title shot, and it looked like he was going to be the guy until he ran into Charles Oliveira. And so then now you have Moicano, who's on a bit of a run. He's on a bit of a run of his own, and can he, you know, not only beat Beneil, but can he put him out? So this fight has a lot of implications for two, like, veterans of the UFC, two guys who obviously want to be champion, and, you know, whoever wins this fight is you know, going to be one step closer to that dream. And then whoever loses this fight, it might be the last run that they get, you know, to put themselves in that position. So, you know, a lot of implications in this one. I think stylistically, it's a fantastic matchup. Both guys have great striking. Both guys have a great grappling. So, this card, it's a fun card, man. It's a fun card. I think opening up the main card is Kevin Holland versus Rainier de Ridder. We saw Rainier get a win over Gerald Meerschaert, right? Look, he didn't look super impressive in that fight. He did eventually get the finish against Meerschaert, but Meerschaert had his moments, and now he's going up against a guy in Kevin Holland who you never know which version of Kevin Holland you're going to get. Kevin Holland either looks fucking great and looks like a world beater, and on the other hand, sometimes he doesn't. Sometimes he just gets run over. So I think that Kevin Holland is going to give Rainier's a lot of trouble on the feet. I think Kevin Holland is a pretty competent grappler, but he might not quite be at the level of Rainier. So I don't know who I'm leaning towards here. I do think that Kevin Holland could definitely go out there and get a knockout, but if he finds himself getting taken down, it might be a long night for Kevin Holland. So the only really other fight that I want to talk about that I'm really excited about seeing this guy fight in person, is Peyton Talbot. I've been pretty high on Peyton Talbot for a while. He's on the prelims on this one. Really since I first saw him fight. Like, the kid is absolutely talented. He's going in there against, an older fighter in Barcelos. Like, I think this is just going to be like a showcase fight for him to come out and, potentially get another highlight win. I'm pretty stoked about seeing him live. When I go to a UFC card, I'm there from the very first fight, because that's what I like. I want to. This is what I pay for when I go to the cards. Like, sometimes the best fight is the very first fight of the night. I remember, I think it was like UFC 199 way back when I went to that. The very first fight was the most exciting fight of the whole card. Mind you, the card had a bunch of great matchups, but the first fight was the best fight. So I'm excited to be back. I haven't been to an event in, I don't even remember which one was the last one I went to, maybe one in Vegas, maybe, I think maybe Israel Adesanya versus Yoel Romero, which is pretty underwhelming, but, I missed out on the card when, Volkanovski and I think Ilya Topuria was in California, in Southern California, and I didn't get to go, but it is what it is. Besides that, Bellator is dead. R.I.P. Bellator. You had a good run. You had a lot of good fighters that you just kind of held back. You got bought out by PFL, and then PFL just kind of let you die. PFL itself looks like it's dying. They cut their bonus checks for winning their tournament from like $1 million to $500,000. So they cut them in half. All these other organizations that come into the game and they do this thing where they're like, let's get this popular fighter and pay him way more than the UFC would ever pay him. The problem is that they don't generate as much money as the UFC generates, and then they end up just kind of dying as a company. And we've seen it so many times, and we've seen so many organizations make the same mistakes. Is they take kind of older fighters, established fighters, and they pay them more money than the UFC would, which, don't get me wrong, I want all these guys to get paid. Literally all of them. You're a professional athlete, you should get paid. But where these organizations screw up is they get these guys that are, at the back end of their careers, and they pay them so much money. But you have to understand is that, like, MMA fans, it's not just, obviously, like, there's fighters that we like and that we're fans of and we want to see them fight. But I think the real draw at the end of the day for the people who consistently watch is watching, like, the kind of high level fights between the most talented guys. At least for me, that's what I enjoy. I don't know. It's a different thing with casual audience, but when you have somebody that watches as many cards as possible, like myself, like, that is what I look for. So when you get a lot of these, we're signing people like Paige Van Zandt in the GFL. I don't give a flying fuck about watching Paige Van Zandt fight. Paige Van Zandt was never, a great fighter. She was a marketable girl because she was pretty. She's gone on and literally done everything she can not to get a regular job, which I'm not hating. Do what you're going to do. I fucking hate working a regular job. If you're going to be on OnlyFans, if you're going to be on Slap Fight, and that's what's going to get you paid so you don't have to go fucking work a drive-thru, hey, more power to you. But as far as watching Paige Van Zandt in an MMA fight, I don't really care because I don't think that she has a skill set where she's ever going to be like a champion. She probably hasn't even been training MMA for years. So, they're GFL signing people like Tyron Woodley. I don't care to watch Tyron Woodley fight. He went off and did the boxing thing. He got knocked out. He's way past his prime. I don't care to see Tyron Woodley fight. And the GFL's bringing in all these guys, all these older guys. I would need to look up a list to see who all they signed, but I think Andrei Arlovsky's on there. Andrei Arlovsky is older, been fighting longer than some MMA fans have lived life, and I just don't care to see him fight anymore. I mean, if that's how these guys want to make a living, do what you do, but I'm not going to get like a high level fight out of these guys, or I don't know. The GFL thing is its own thing. Bellator is dead. PFL seems like it's on its way out. You can't really afford to pay Francis Ngannou all those millions of dollars when you're not generating money. You're not really an organization that's putting on successful pay-per-views, and that's the big problem with a lot of these fucking organizations is they're starting and they're throwing out all this money, not realizing that like it takes years to build your company up to a point where you're going to be profitable. So all this money that you're throwing out up front, it's not sustainable. It's just not. It's not a good, business plan. In the beginning, the UFC wasn't profitable for years. But the UFC at this point has a 30-year head start on a lot of these organizations. And even they don't pay these fighters some of what, other organizations are paying. And while I would love it if the UFC paid fighters more, like it is, they're still around. They're not going out of business. They're still growing. And a lot of these other organizations are out of business. I mean, do you even understand how many organizations at this point I've seen come and go? A lot. I could name them all if you'd like, but I don't think we have that kind of time. I'm not big on the GFL. Maybe I'll talk about them more just this whole draft idea that they have, the team idea. I think it's all really fucking stupid and contrite. Like what are we doing? Like, that's your big plan? That's what's going to get people to tune in? Oh, hey, they're having a draft. Oh, yeah, other sports have drafts. Let me watch this. It's not how it works. It's not how this works. You want to have a successful MMA organization, you know what it starts at? It starts at scouting good, young, up-and-coming talent. And that is something that the UFC is still doing. Not that I'm a fucking UFC nut hugger, but it's the best product out there right now. It just is. And they're doing the best job of scouting new talent. Look at fucking Dana White's Contender Series. It is the perfect vessel for scouting young talent. You got a lot of these guys. They want to be in the UFC because it's the premier organization. It's where you're going to get the best fights. It's where you're going to get the highest level of competition. And so a lot of these guys, they want to be UFC champion. They don't necessarily want to be PFL champion. They probably don't want to be GFL champion. They want to be UFC champion because that is the name that is most closely tied to MMA. So when you have something like the Dana White Contender Series and it kind of weeds out the top talent, like that's already kind of monopolizing like the scouting part of MMA, the part that's going to make you successful. So, good luck to the GFL. For me, I just like to play a game of like, hey, how many years is this organization going to be around for? So, we'll see what happens. I think what they're doing is already dumb. So we'll see what, if they have any success at all. Don't get me wrong, I'll still probably watch some of their cards, but Am I going to tune into all of them? Probably not. Yeah, that's about it, man. I'm kind of sick of talking. I think I need another beer at this point because I'm not even fucking sponsored by these guys, you know. Stone Brewery, hit me up if you want. Drink this shit all day if you want on camera. You let me know. I got you, baby. That's it, man. That's it for this episode. This was a very long one. I don't know who's still paying attention at this point. Probably nobody. I think only my mom is going to watch it this far into the episode. So that's it. I am going to go to the card on Saturday. I'm really bad at filming shit like in real life or taking pictures or anything like that. But hopefully I remember to maybe take some videos of the event if I am there, if I haven't died in a fire before then. And I will try to cut in footage of being at the fights for the next video, maybe next week, next Monday, something like that. But hopefully I do that. Hopefully I'm not just absolutely hammered where I just, I've been there where I try to record shit and I'm just so drunk that I end up just getting the seat right in front of me. So we'll see. I'm excited. Hopefully I'm at the fight in person. But that's it. I will catch you guys later. I'm going to play some video games. I've been streaming Marvel Rivals on my channel. I don't know if anybody gives an absolute flying fuck about that, but I enjoy playing it. So if you want to watch, I will put up some streams. Peace.